money was my motivation. Because like I said, I already loved what I was doing in tech media, but I wasn't being paid enough for it. We weren't generating enough money to be able to sustain the kind of life that I wanted. So for me, the motivation became money.
Today we're meeting with Saruni Maina, the AVP of Stablecoins at Flutterwave. His corporate climb is attributed to what he terms as Kiherehere. But before that, hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss more stories from us.
So in campus, I went to African Nazarene University. I studied BBIT, which is a course a lot of people think is half-baked in itself. So because it's a little bit of computer science and a little bit of business. So I would actually say, to some extent you might feel like you are half-baked when you do BBIT. But I think it just needs a little more input from yourself, kujituma, so that you are able to be just as good as either someone who did full business or someone who did full computer science.
During his campus days, Saruni was immersed in several startups, shaping his current position.
Very much involved in campus. Actually, I think I would consider, this is something I think I've also said on my social media before, Kiherehere inakuanga nzuri. And in campus nilikuwa mtu wa Kiherehere, but I would say positive Kiherehere. So I was involved in quite a number of things within the campus. But the major thing that really stood out was I did found, together with some of my friends, a startup back in campus. It was called Taka Smart. So it is a wordplay of taka Swahili, of rubbish, and smart because of the technology that we were using. So essentially what the startup did was we were encouraging Kenyans to recycle more. Because the backstory of it is a while back, actually back then, can I remember the year? I think it was like 2015. There was some very heavy rains in Nairobi. And our campus was in Ongata Rongai, and I remember drainage was being blocked a lot. And the one thing that really stood out was that drainage was being blocked by plastics. And it wasn't just plastic bags, but it was plastic bottles. So either as a soda, maji, those kind of things. So the idea here came, how could we actually, encourage people to dispose of these bottles much better? So we decided to incentivize people to take care of their trash in a better way. So the whole idea of the startup was putting a value on plastics that would encourage, let's say for example, you to be able to recycle these plastics. So we used to have a value of I think 50 cents for the small 500 ml plastic bottle, going all the way up to I think maybe 10 bob or 20 bob, I really can't remember exactly, for the bigger bottles, 20 liters and such. So the whole thing was, I would actually say it was successful. We got featured in the media quite a number of times. We were on K24, we were on KTN News. There was a lot of hype for that kind of early stage startup around it. Of course, it didn't bear fruits, it didn't come to be anything, but that was mostly because I would say wrong timing in terms of market, and also just lack of funds and lack of experience. We were third-year students trying to build a startup that was an intersection between environment and technology, because we had built a wallet that was that the whole startup was running on. So the wallet essentially would happen is this: wewe ukileta your bottles, which we had a station on campus where you could bring your bottles, you drop them off there, and then we'd give you tokens. So we used to call them Taka points. That worked similarly to what we have today as either Bonga points, Safaricom, or any supermarket's reward loyalty points. So they work in a similar way. So we had built this wallet from scratch. And then we had connected this wallet to an Africa stocking API for airtime, which essentially allowed our customers to be able to convert their points directly into airtime. And our points were 1 for 1. So if you had 1,000 points, you essentially had 1,000 Kenya shillings worth of money in your wallet. And you'd be able to convert this into airtime. We were working on a way to convert this directly into M-Pesa. It never came to fruition because we couldn't figure out how to do KYC, as our whole app was running on USSD and SMS. And then we had also partnered with the canteen on campus to be able to allow people to pay for their goods on campus through these Taka points. So essentially it was some form of money, we had tokenized the points, we were able to create value for it. And by the time we were deciding to shut things down, we actually had around 150 customers. And we had made some quite, I would say, some very good transactions. I can't remember the exact number itself, but we actually had gotten a small grant, I think from Ericsson, if I can remember correctly. So there was something there. I think maybe just in the future we might get back into it. The technology is still around. And the funny thing is, we've seen people try to do something similar, but it never works out just because they lack that technological aspect of what we had built.
Beginning as a tech journalist, Saruni's journey was just taking its initial steps.
Despite doing BBIT, I was a huge fan of MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee. Marcus Brownlee is a YouTuber, tech YouTuber who does reviews and all of those things. And I used to adore this man, I will not lie. Like, I would almost say he was like an idol to me. See the way people have celebrities that are like, oh, I want to be like this person. For me, it was Marcus. I was like, yeah, I want to be like this person. So while still on campus, I reached out to a Kenyan tech blog called Kiherehere, run by a very nice guy called Kaluka Wanjala. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm very interested in getting into tech reviews. I have zero experience, but I'd very much love to work with you. And he came back to me and was like, well, it's a one-man team, so there's no budget to pay anyone, but if you'd like to just do it for fun, then we can work together. And I thank Kaluka so much because he gave me that one opportunity to get into something that I loved, and I started it as a hobby. So while I was still running Taka Smart with my friends, while I was still in campus doing my things, before graduation, I used to write for Tech Arena Kenya. So I used to do reviews. He would send me phones over, like by that time I would get the really budget phones, Zillas at 10K, 15K, like those, the Technos and Infinix of the world. And I would do reviews for them, and then I would post these articles through Tech Arena. And the fun part was, in some cases, he would let me keep the phones. So it made me popular in some way on campus because people used to know, oh, this is a guy with many phones. This is a guy who knows which phones are out, because people used to see me shoot. Because you see, if you're doing a review, you have to do a shoot for it, whether it's just photo stills or even video. So I used to do that on campus with the help of my friends. So it became sort of a thing where people knew me as that person. And then, so promptly after I completed my studies in 2016, I got a job at TechWiz. So at least this was now paying, so I would actually say it was an actual job. But I was essentially doing the same thing. I was doing tech reviews, I was doing interviews of startups, and it was fun because I really enjoyed that. It allowed me to show my creativity. I did quite a number of video reviews itself. I did reviews of iPhones, the high-end Samsung phones, and it was genuinely exciting. This was like a dream come true for me because, like I mentioned, I used to look at MKBHD and be like, I want to be that, and now I was on a pathway to get that done. It was very good. Of course, it had its moments since I was learning. I had never done media before, so I was learning all these things about media. How to be a journalist, quote unquote. And I remember I made quite a number of mistakes early in the days. Even my earlier videos. Actually, there's one thing that still resonates with me. I remember one person watched one of the reviews I did, came and tweeted, didn't even tag me. Didn't even have the courtesy to tag me as feedback, but came and tweeted and said, I can't remember exactly, I'll paraphrase, kuna jamaa wa TechWiz anajiita Saruni, video zake hufanya nataka kulala. And this is a very young person. How old was I? I think it was like 22 thereabout, 22, 23. So this feedback really got to me. I won't lie. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not that good. And I don't know how I got over it, but somewhat, instead of me stopping doing everything, I took that feedback and I was like, okay, I'm going to improve in how I deliver my words, in how I do my shots and all of those things, just to try, make myself better at what I was doing. And someone noticed, someone by the name called Rishabh Lawania reached out to me with his partner called NJ, and they were like, hi. By that time, they were running another media house called WeTracker. They were doing a business media. It was mostly focusing on the tech business side of things. And they were like, hi, we like what you do with TechWiz. We'd like you to come join us and help us start a separate, media company called Gadgets Africa. And for this one, we'd like you to focus on now the consumer side of technology. This other one was the business side of technology. This was consumer side. So essentially what I was doing with TechWiz, but a bit more dedicated. And this was exciting for me because there was a bit more resources to be more playful with things, to try and do more with what I had envisioned would be my career. Because now this was 2 years after I was at TechWiz, so now I was deep into it. And I spent another further 2 years at Gadgets Africa. And with all honesty, it was some of the best times that I ever had. I had so much fun creating content. I hired folks who I mentored into becoming content creators. And I really did enjoy my time with Gadgets Africa. And until today, it's something that I'm very, very proud of because I built this platform from ground, like zero. No one knew about it, nothing. And I brought this platform up to a point where we used to have 1 million views per month just on the website itself. And then we had really good partnerships, with Samsung and every other consumer technology company, including Canon as well. So it was very, very exciting, and it's one of my most proud moments because honestly, I can boldly say that I worked for that to what the company is even until today, as much as I left, even until what it was today. That foundation that I believe that I set together with Rishabh, NJ, and a couple of other guys who actually joined, the very early team members, it's what brought the company to what it was to that. But then I quickly realized that, this dream that I had of becoming the MKBHD of Africa wasn't really paying off. And I remember there was this period, I think 2019, 2020, some of my friends got into, because we were techies, remember, we actually did tech. So these guys were software engineers. I was actually the only one who had stopped coding. I used to write code. I used to do C# and I built a number of things around that, but I wasn't patient enough for it, so I just stopped. But my friends kept coding. They became really good software engineers. They're now employed by Microsoft and other international companies. But around 2019, 2020 is when they were getting into these international companies. And my God, these guys were being paid, I think, almost 10 times what I was being paid. And it just hit me in some way. At this time, I was now 25, 26, and I'm thinking, what is happening in my life? My friends are buying cars, they're buying Mercedes-Benz, they're rolling with some very good, you can see the level that they've now come to just because of these jobs that they've gotten. And then it hit me like, okay, I need something different in my life. I need, as much as this is exciting, media, especially tech media, which is very niche, wasn't paying that good. So it was exciting, you get to do things that you love. But on the money side, it was lacking a lot. And I think that is now where I decided to change my career. And I was like, I need to get onto something that is both exciting, but at least also gives me the money that allows me to live the life that I want.
Transitioning into tech, Saruni faced the pivotal decision of defining his aspirations.
Money was my motivation because, like I said, I already loved what I was doing in tech media, but I wasn't being paid enough for it. We weren't generating enough money to be able to sustain the kind of life that I wanted. So for me, the motivation became money. So I took my skills that I already garnered. So this is the part where transferable skills become a very interesting and a very huge aspect of switching careers. And I have actually shared my career journey of how I switched careers from being in tech media to coming into the product side of tech. And the one thing that a lot of people always ask is, how did you know what you wanted to do? So it was very simple. Okay, I'm saying it's simple now, but at that time it really was, because I took a whole year of interviews to actually get someone to give me an opportunity and say, okay, you have no actual experience in this particular role, but you have transferable skills that I believe would empower you to succeed in this role. Like I said, I was amazing. I was doing both at Tech Quiz and Guidance Africa, and after that, I actually got into another startup with Rishabh called Badili Africa, and they've raised quite a lot of money right now, and it's a thriving startup. They've now expanded to Uganda. They're based in Kenya, but have expanded to Uganda, and they're doing very well. The startup essentially allows customers to be able to buy refurbished phones, genuinely refurbished phones, not zile streets that you are afraid that when you've bought the phone 1 month later, BCR on your neck, trying to figure out, were you the one who robbed this person and stole the phone? So this was trying to bring sanity into the used phone market. And honestly, I did help with bringing the company up. The very first thing that a company needs, trying to figure out who will be the best hires at the early stage, the first algorithm for because it's all web-based. So you go onto the platform and you input, so let's say for example, you want to sell your phone, you have an iPhone, let's say 12, you want to sell it so that you can upgrade. You go to the website, you input the details of the phone itself, the condition, if it has scratches, a lot of those things, and then at the background, the backend, the platform would be able to estimate the value of your phone. So this initial algorithm, and I remember I actually wrote it on an Excel sheet, because we were just trying to figure out how do we calculate different aspects of the phone. So I did that, and of course by now I'm very sure that they built on top of that to make it much more smarter and all of that. But that initial MVP, that is what I did. That is what I brought into the company that is Badili today. And of course, Rishabh and the team have done so much more amazing work from what we did back then. I only stayed there for a very few months, I think up to around 6 months before I left. So anyway, I was digressing into that bit that we missed. So I had now skills of building a startup, I would say even 3 times. So there was Chaka Smart that I built, then there was Gadgets Africa, and then now there was Badili. So I had this extensive experience of operations within a startup, how to bring a startup, from scratch and hire the first people, just bring the operations up, keep the operations up and running. So I had those kind of skills. And then 2, I had skills of product design. So product design is essentially being able to design softwares and how they would look like, the interface itself. So I did that with Gadgets Africa, designed the initial website, worked with the team on that. And then for Badili as well, there were some aspects of product design. So there was that, I had these 2 major things. I could bring things to life through operations, and then I had the experience with product design. And the third thing was, I was a tech journalist, so I was a pro writer. This is something that I know, it's always good to know things about yourself. So I know that I can write. So I had these 3 major things. I took these 3 things and crafted a CV based on whichever roles I saw that needed me to be able to do these things. So the role that I landed at that time was at Cheaper Cash as a content designer. So this is, I wouldn't say it's a fancy word for UX writer, but it kind of is, only that it's a bit more broad. So for a UX writer, it's like you're limited to this single lane. Think of UX writer as a single lane, and then a content designer is now multi-lane, like Thikaron kind of superhighway. So there's multiple things that you're working on, from designing the language that we're using, the kind of words that we're using, the kind of colors that we should be using on an app, and all of those things. So, and I remember the hiring manager at that time, and honestly, I don't know, I don't want to say ni God manze, but it honestly felt like a miracle to me, because I was hired, and not as an entry-level content designer, but as a mid-level content designer. Mind you, I had 0 experience in being a content designer, in being an actual product designer, or anything that had to do with product. All I had was random use cases of transferable skills. But I think I just presented all these transferable skills in a way that made sense to the hiring manager at Cheaper Cash. And they were like, actually, this is the kind of person that we need. This is a person that we want to be able to work with. And I was surprised that they hired me as a mid-level. But yeah, so I worked at Cheaper Cash for almost 2 years at 2 different roles. So the funny thing, I don't know if this is a bad thing or a good thing, but ile Kiherehere that I mentioned earlier, I take that Kiherehere with me everywhere that I go. So when I got into Cheaper Cash, I was hired as a content designer. But I ended up working a lot on our B2B products. And this is where I started getting into tech sales. You know, because I was working with my now mentor, and it's mentor by force, called Wizard Jalakasi. So he was the VP at Cheaper Cash for the B2B side of business. And it was a one-man show. He was the only one who was doing that. And I remember this one time we were at Africa Tech Summit that happens in February in Nairobi. And we were seated with the Cheaper Cash team, and then our country director from Uganda was like, hey guys, I want to sponsor blankets and wine in Uganda, and I want Cheaper Cash to be the ones selling the tickets, but I have no idea how to do it. And I was like, actually, I think there's a way we can do it. And I narrated how to the team, which was basically, actually I was the lowest ranking in that team, because everyone else was country directors and VPs, you know. And I was like, hey, I think we can get this done in this way. You know, we can tweak we already have the payments, because Cheaper Cash is a payments wallet. We already have the payments aspect. We just need to get someone to help us with the ticketing through an API, you know, wrap it with a cheaper UI and push it out and let our customers be able to. We don't need to build it into the app. Just need to do a short website, link it to within the app and all of that. And they liked it. They were like, oh, actually, yeah, we can do that. And I remember, because now this was touching on the B2B side for Wiza. And it was like, oh, Saruni, so because we've come up with the idea, it's you to make sure it comes to life. I'm not gonna do anything. Like, I'll give you the resources that you need, I'll help you out, but it's you to make it come to life. So here I was part of of course, the design team, because we have to design how all the flow will work, find the right API partner, get connected and all those things. But yeah, so through this, I was able to feel how get a feeling of how it felt working on the B2B side of things. And it was exciting. So after 6 months of being a content designer, I went to my manager and I was like, so you remember that project I did with Visa? Yeah, I think I want to join Visa's team. And he was like, oh really? Okay, so I think we can make that work. Speak to Visa, get to know if he's looking to hire. If his team is looking to hire someone, then we can see how you can do a lateral move into that department. So I spoke to Wiza. I was like, hey, I'm really interested in joining your team, because I think this is something that I want to do. You know, I want to work with techies. I want to help them build APIs and integrate within the financial ecosystem and just make things work on a B2B side of things. And again, that worked out. So my years at Cheaper was in 2 roles, the content designer, and then I moved into being one of the B2B guys. Yeah, so that was my time at Cheaper.
Following a departmental layoff, Saruni had to seek opportunities elsewhere.
So unfortunately, time at Cheaper was cut short. We had layoffs, you know, that's period where there was, every tech company was doing layoffs, whether they actually needed to do layoffs, but it was just for fun. But so our department got laid off. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But then after that, I promptly joined Yellowcard. So Yellowcard is a crypto company. What they do is they have a crypto wallet that allows you as a customer to be able to buy crypto assets as an investment. They also have a remittance play to it, whereby you can buy stable coins and send that to someone else. So essentially, if I'm sitting in Nairobi, I can buy stable coins through Yellowcard, send those stable coins to someone in South Africa, and then in South Africa they can withdraw the stable coins into either their mobile wallet or into their bank account. So essentially it's remittance, being able to send money. And they had this new product that they were launching, their B2B API. So essentially what I was doing at Cheaper Cash is what they were looking for. And I think that's why actually my move to Yellowcard was very swift and very prompt, because I had the experience of building something within the B2B side, you know, managing clients, relationships and all of that, helping them integrate with the company's API. So yeah, that is what I did at Yellowcard. Well, it was also a very short stint. Unfortunately, things didn't really work out because of, you know, I would say the pace. There was a mismatch in the pace that I was moving and the pace that the company wanted to move in. And so yeah, we had to part ways after a very short period.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then after Yellowcard?
Yeah, so after Yellowcard, I stayed home for a month. to think. I was like, I need to think about what comes next, I was so much into the fintech space now, and managed to move from media into the fintech space. And I would honestly generally say I believe I was good at what I was doing. And the one thing I know I was good at what I was doing is when I left Yellow Card, because it was a bit abrupt, a lot of the partners that I was working with reached out to me in various ways. So those who had my number reached out to me on my number, Telegram, and LinkedIn as well. And when I told them that I'd left, I promise you this, 90% of them offered me jobs. They were like, oh, so are you looking to, like, we can hire you. Like, you can come in, you can help us expand. So all of these companies that I was working with, they were trying to expand into the African space. So they were crypto companies, but they were trying to expand into the African space. So the beauty that or rather the advantage that I had is, I had knowledge of normal fintech due to cheaper cash, and now I had knowledge of how the crypto fintech side of things works. And I was definitely good at being a B2B relationship kind of manager and helping them navigate the space of which APIs you need to connect, how do you onboard, and all those things. So there was that bit of, I got quite a number of offers of, hey, why don't you join us, and then we'll create a position for you, you'll help us expand, you'll help us get the right partners and all those things. But at this time, I generally didn't want to join a small company. I didn't want to join a small startup. I had PTSD. I was like, I'm not joining a company who don't have a good standing in terms of their revenues and books. So I wanted to join a company where I'll feel more comfortable and I'll have the resources to now take my career to the next level. So that is how I ended up at Flutterwave. So the Flutterwave story is generally, I actually pitched to Flutterwave to give me the role that I have today. I was like, and I think that's still the entrepreneurial side of things that still resonates within me. Deep down, I think I'm still an entrepreneur. So I was like, hey, I think there's this side of business that Flutterwave is not involved in right now. And we can work together, and I can lead this and make this happen. And I was bold enough to actually pitch this to the CEO, GB. And fortunately, like a miracle again, he got one day. He agreed to get on a call with me alongside my now manager. He's called Ross. He's the chief of sales. And they really liked what I pitched. And they were like, actually, we like the numbers, we like the execution idea. So join us and build it out. And that is what I'm doing right now.
When was this?
So this was August last year. That's when I actually officially joined Flutterwave. So I've been at Flutterwave for the past 6 months. This is my 7th month. Building and trying to fix things and seeing how we can build out a strategy within the crypto space while still remaining compliant with all our regulators.
By the Flutterwave started out more of a fintech, in the normal.
Flutterwave is essentially, still is until today, Flutterwave is one of the biggest fintech startups in Africa, one of the biggest B2B companies within the fintech space, serving some very big multinational companies with some very interesting partnerships, around the world. So a lot of multinationals actually come to Flutterwave to expand into Africa. Because for these multinationals, if you can't accept payments from your customers, there's nothing that you're doing within the African space. And one thing, it's very easy for a multinational to come into Africa and say, oh, we already have cards supported, so it's just going to be easy. We'll get cards and we'll collect. But one thing is, in Africa, cards rarely work. Up until M-Pesa launched their virtual cards, I would say a good number of Kenyans wouldn't bother to pay anything online with a card. We are very skeptical market. We're always thinking, oh, my cards are going to be hacked. So we usually tend to trust mobile money more, or even cash.
Obtaining most positions through pitching, Saruni shares his perspective on this job acquisition method.
It might work and it might not work, but what I believe in is, I believe in going for what you want. In this case, I chose Flutterwave. I was like, these are the people I want to work with. I liked what they were doing. I liked the milestones that they had reached. And I was like, yeah, I want to work with Flutterwave. And I took that bold step of saying, okay, this is my idea. This is what I think I can bring to the table. And fortunately, it worked out for me. And yeah, I think it's something that every other mentee that I actually have, I've always told them, pitch, shoot your shot, you know. If you like something, if you like a certain startup, if you like a certain company and how they're doing, yes, they may not be hiring at that time. And the truth is, there's other times I shot my shots to other companies and they did not work. Remember I told you, prior to me switching my career from media into tech, I had stayed a whole year. And this was a whole year of me applying, a whole year of me shooting my shot, a whole year of me trying to show people this is what I'm trying to bring to the table. But sometimes it just doesn't work. Either they might like what you're doing, but it's just not the right time. Or sometimes they're just like, yeah, we don't need that kind of skill. So yes, for me, I think and I believe, especially for those who are trying to switch careers, you know, one thing is identify your transferable skills, you know. Which skills do you currently have? And the one question that people always ask is, I don't know what else I want to do. They're always like, oh, I might want to get into tech, but I don't want to write code. But there's so many things that you can do within the tech space. So just figure out what transferable skills do you have. What are the top 3 things that you can say today that if any company was to hire me, these are the 3 things that I will bring to them. Then take those skills, put them into a CV, and try to figure out which kind of roles match with this. If you find that, then start applying. You know, the difference in this case is your CV might not have the titles that they are looking for. But this is the time where your cover letter comes to play. You know, your cover letter explains why you're applying to that role, despite not having held a previous role of that title. Because this is the thing where I think our recruitment is broken. Because if today I was to hire, let's say for example, a software engineer, if the previous role of that person was a chef, I'll be like, okay, I can't believe that this person is a software engineer. But yet, this person might have had enough experience to be a software engineer, only that they didn't have the title that they were holding that title prior. So that is something that was a disadvantage with me. When I was trying to switch into tech, I didn't have any technical titles as much as I had the technical skills to do actual product things. So I figured out a way to narrate that story for myself and showcase that through my CV. I did not lie on my CV. I did not change the previous titles that I had. If I was an editor, I was an editor. But through the cover letter and also the experience that I would put down on the CV, I was able to show that this is the kind of skills that I want to bring into this role. And I think that is something that everyone needs to do, you know, whether you're pitching, whether you're shooting your shot, whether you're reaching directly to that founder, because the networks, this is the part where networks really come to play and they really help out. But I think everyone should, especially if you're doing career switch, as I mentioned, just figure out what skills do you currently have? How do they fit into the new career that you want to do? And you need to upskill in some cases, because I had to upskill in terms of design. I had to do courses for that. You need to upskill, do that, and then package it all nicely, make it look nice, and then I'll shoot your shot.
Action.